I am Kheri Holland Tillman, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer of Primo Brands.
And I'm David DeMuth, the CEO of Donor, and you're listening to the CPG Guys podcast.
Welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. Your hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys.
Welcome to the CPG Guys podcast, live from the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity, straight from Cannes, France. I'm, of course, Shri, your co-host, and joining me today is the other co-host, Peter V.S. Bond. When not on the CPG Guys, I'm also CRO and co-founder at Think Blue Consulting, a management advisory firm focused on omnichannel brands and retail transformation. Please do listen to my older daughter's music at www.riaraj.com. That's R-H-E-R-A-J. And my younger daughter, Lara Raj, is a member of the fast-growing global girl group, Cat's Eye. The new hit, Gabriella, is out on all channels. We recently hit episode 500 with Amazon VP of Ads, Dana Elton, released on June 18th. Please do check it out on all podcasting platforms. We appreciate you leaving us a review and rating on the Apple Podcast platform. It informs us how we're doing and if we're having the right conversations on this podcast. The CPG Guys were here all week and recorded several episodes with industry luminaries from CMOs to brand and retail media leadership. Enjoy this episode.
And now on to our guest today. Let's welcome David DeMuth, CEO of Donor, who is focused on how consumers perceive brands, make decisions, and establish loyalty. As the CEO, he spent 35 plus years helping the agency best serve its clients, attract top talent, and transform it into the modern marketing machine it is today. And we can't wait to have a discussion on all three of those words: marketing, modern, and machine. We're also joined by Kheri Holland Tillman, a dynamic marketing and sales executive with over 25 years of success in CPG, an industry we come from, and also CMO of Primo Brands. Her experience ranges across multiple categories, including beverages, electronics, and food, with opportunities to drive a range of brand types, innovation, iconic brands, brand turnarounds, all the way to some of our favorites from Jell-O, JBL, Dos Equis, and Poland Spring. David and Kheri, welcome to the CPG Guys. How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Very good. Excited to be here.
We're in an air-conditioned room.
There we go.
With a view of the beach that we never really get to enjoy because we're working for four straight days.
That's right.
So welcome indeed, guys. We're excited to have you here. We'll include your LinkedIn profiles, donors, and Primo Brands websites and LinkedIn pages for our listeners to access in the digital liner notes of this episode, because that's what they love to do, multitask. So here we start, and this question is for both of you today. We're actually, sometimes we forget we're actually in a festival of creativity because there's so many other topics and bystander things going on over here. But I want us to actually start with what the main mission and purpose of this festival, which is creative. So I'd love to hear from each of you. Maybe Kheri, you can go first, and then we'll come to you, David. How do you define creative? And in a world driven by data, retail media, performance metrics, what is even creative these days?
You know, it's really interesting. The idea of creative has so evolved over time, right? And I think if you get too caught up with data and too caught up with the science of it, you actually lose the core of what creative is. Mm-hmm. So for me, creative is really about understanding what the problem is in its simplest terms, and then finding cool, interesting, different ways to bring it to consumers. And if you can do that and truly engage them, I think you have now created something that is unique, different, and will reach your consumers. So I think it's the mash of science and the art that comes together to really find a way to reach consumers.
And David, your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think creativity today is a lot of things, but at its core, it's an insight, an idea, and some type of platform to activate that idea. And sometimes the insight is data-driven. Sometimes it's just based on an observation that you might see out on the street or in a store, whatever, about human behavior, and something that touches people emotionally,
I think that's the key word, right? Touches people emotionally. With the way we've been so lower funnel focused in the last few years with retail media, we've kind of gotten over from creative. Hopefully today we'll discover and bring back that word, emotions in creative.
I'd love to hear from both the perspective of a brand and an agency. How can creativity and commerce work in harmony and not in conflict? Kheri?
In that question, I don't know how hard it is, right? I think if you go back to what is it that you want the consumer to understand, and be really true about who your brand is, whether you're showing up in retail or showing up in social media, I don't know if those two actually have to be in conflict. Okay. We work really hard to understand the insight. We'll take MLB, for example. One of the reasons why we signed our MLB deal was because it could get us into store and get us displays. And that was really core to what we needed to do. The way we layered that on with creative that touches our consumer is we partnered with the right people, right? So Fernando Tatis is a player from the San Diego Padres. Mm-hmm. So we were able to extend MLB, bring it to our consumer, and we launched, he did a post the other day that was 10 times the engagement that we typically have on our posts that are singular. So we were able to take MLB as a base and find a way for it to show up in retail and also directly to consumers, but in different ways so that consumer could actually really engage with the content that was created.
Yeah. Kheri, by the way, I should mention to you that we're not actually a CPG podcast. We're a baseball podcast. You're looking at a diehard Yankee and a True Blue Dodger fan.
There you go.
And so here's the deal.
And I'm wearing a Tigers t-shirt.
Yeah, there you go.
I saw that. I was going to bring it up. It was good. And you said Fernando Tatis. The first thing that goes to my head is it's actually Junior.
Fernando Tatis Jr. You are correct.
Because we're die-hard baseball addicts. We were at. He's a Dodgers fan living in Yankee Land.
1 through 4 of the World
Series
last year.
Yeah.
Peter was just over visiting me.
Remember the League of Your Own?
Yes.
No crying in baseball?
Yes.
There were tears.
He tries to bring it up, and then I flash the 27 Yankees championship, and he
how long?
walks away like a little
That's right.
boss.
When was the
That's
last
right.
time the Yankees won?
Hey, I don't know, 27.
Sorry,
Good.
see, I told you. We're
But
really
now I am curious though. Is it a MLB partnership that's nationwide? Is there a team because of Fernando, or how are you guys actually doing this?
So we have a national MLB deal.
Okay.
Because we have our 6 regional spring waters, so we have to activate locally, but sign deals nationally because otherwise you can't afford to sign all those smaller deals. Mm-hmm. And so we did the national deal really because MLB allowed us to get into retail, allows us to talk to the retailers in a different way, but then it also allows us to activate our brands. And then the overlay, true local overlay, was to go to specific players. And so we ended up signing 4 different players. Fernando was the first one that we've activated. And that really, it truly engaged our consumers in a way we did not expect. Because we found a way to marry MLB as a bigger entity with something that they could relate to personally. So.
Well, you certainly come to the right podcast to talk MLB. But David, we still would like your perspective on that as well. And by now we've forgotten what it is.
I was going to say, I sort of forgot what the question was.
Creativity and commerce.
Harmony or conflict?
I think, they can live in harmony. And I think one of the things we're seeing with our clients, particularly in CPG and retail, they've kind of optimized their brands into oblivion in a sense that they've gotten so targeted with the media, all these retail media things, they forgot about, hey, there's a lot of other people out there in the world that might be interested in your product. And I think Kheri brings up a great point too. My first job was working in a grocery store, and my dad ran a chain of grocery stores. So I always think about the retail level. How does an idea activate at retail? We used to call it screen to shelf, and
the moment of truth. It's the moment of truth.
The moment of truth. The last 3 feet. There's no shortage of
plenty of words.
Right.
We got our message.
But I continue to think that that's really important. When you're thinking about creativity and commerce and you're trying to find the intersection, will that idea move the retail, or will it grab people's attention in the store? And I think particularly when you're talking about a product like water that is essentially a commodity, you want to have that thing that separates. We call them, a lot of the time we talk about distinctive brand assets, DBAs, and what are those things that I might see it on my phone and then I see it in the store and I've made the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're lucky to have both of you, brand and agency, together here on the podcast. So I'm tempted to ask both of you, what does a modern, high-functioning brand agency relationship look like in 2025? How's it evolved over the years?
I think there are certain core values that have never changed, from the agency side, understanding your client's business from the ground up, honesty, transparency.
These are literally, you're the fifth group that we've recorded that have said the exact same words. Transparency and trust triumph everything else.
I think those things are really, really important, and it's not always as easy to achieve these days. You remember the days with the agency, you got on a nice big fat fee and you straight line the money over 12 months, and now we're paid in different ways by project.
That's a good thing, and that's actually something we hear about. It's changing because with the injection of AI into this, how you price your work is going to fundamentally
Especially non-working
change.
media, right?
Exactly, non-working media.
Look, I think we all need to take those steps very carefully.
Yeah, sure.
But look, I think those things haven't changed, and I think today, agencies that really have a good grasp of data, that are proactive, and I always remind my team, we're in a service business. So our service ethic is really, really important to us. And, I read this quote from the former CEO of McDonald's a couple years ago, and it really rang true with me. He said, the world will never move slower than it does today. Just meaning that things are just going to keep getting faster. So as an agency, we need to be able to respond almost in real time, because there's things happening in culture, there's things happening in your business that we need to be prepared to jump on. So I think those are, the foundational things that make a difference.
I would agree. The one I would build on it is that true partnership, right? So being able to have someone who, right, Monica for me, which is there is a problem, an issue, an opportunity, something to be solved, and to know that you have a partner on the other end who truly does understand your business, who understands what the goals are of the business, and they're not always just about awareness. We think marketing is about awareness, but if you're not driving to the bottom line dollar, you're not doing your job anymore, right? And so having someone on the other end, on the agency side, that truly understands what you're trying to do, it allows for a relationship that is very different than if it's transactional.
What do you wish more agencies and brands understood about each other when it comes to delivering real business outcomes? What is your advice to others that are in the same kind of situation as an agency or a brand? What do they need to know about each other?
I think the first thing is making sure as a brand team, as a client, we understand what we want to get out of what we're doing. Yeah. We need to set the right goals. We need to set the right objectives for ourselves. If we do that right first, and then we can then share those with the agency and create the same set of goals and objectives for the agency. So again, when you're going into the conversation, we're really clear at the beginning that says, this is what we want to get out of what we're about to do. And sometimes it's going to be directly about conversion. There may be something that we need to do. Conversion may be the thing that's slipping. And so we'll create and we'll work with the agency to create an idea that'll get us to that specific goal. Mm-hmm. I think you have to be flexible in where you're going, but have to be clear in what you're trying to get out of it. Mm-hmm. I think if we set that up and are really clear about it, I think it's important. Where it really works as a relationship is also have the agency push back when you're saying, I hear you, I don't know how that's going to be measured, right? Yeah. And so being able to have a dialogue that's like, I hear you want to get conversion, but unless we have that measurement and we can actually go do the research, how are you going to know that you actually did that? So those are the pieces that need to work.
What I interpret that as with respect to the transparency and trust, this is about knowing that feedback is meant to be a gift and to help you, not to demoralize or demean you. Right. It's truly, Dave, your perspective on this?
Yeah, well, I think from an agency perspective, I try to always remind myself that what we're doing on behalf of the client may not be the only thing on their mind that day. Okay,
that's a big one.
That is, you know what? You always think you're the center of the universe.
That they have other things that might be related to product. It might be internal constituents. It might be your retailer. It might be the board. Whatever. Right. There are a lot of other things going on. So we need to be patient and understanding and helpful in that regard. And then from the client back to the agency. I think, creativity is sort of like it's a vulnerable act, right? You're putting something out into the world. You're making yourself vulnerable, and I think creative people crave feedback, and they crave consistent and frequent feedback because it's an act of vulnerability in a sense. And I think our best client relationships have really great feedback loops in them, and those might be formal, they might be informal. They're often frequent, because I think that the worst thing that can happen in a client agency relationship is when problems fester and they don't get themselves out there quickly, because most problems are solvable.
Right. It's funny that the other day we were presented an idea, and the team, the most senior person wasn't there, and so they said, well, we'll get back to you with feedback. And I was like, no, you have to give feedback, even if it's just initial feedback. That is, hey, we think the idea delivered, but there's an opportunity in this area, but let us regroup and come back to you. I think the worst thing you can do with a creative is not give any feedback.
No, right.
And when they've presented an idea. So we've stopped the team from saying, we're going to regroup and give you feedback. Every time that it's presented, we want some feedback at that moment so that can be taken in, and then we can give you more before we go do it.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, and kind of at the core of good agency client relationship. But beyond understanding the business, always just clear and constant feedback and communication.
Feedback is important. It's a gift, as Peter said earlier. It looks like the team was exercising the HIPPO rule. You guys know what the HIPPO rule is? Highest paid person's opinion.
Yeah.
So in the crazy world we live in, which in the last 2 years has seen significant volume challenges, lapsed brands, lost households, new to brand is the most important, fascinating thing for brands at this point, trying to bring new entrants, getting innovation right, because there's very little room to fail on innovations these days, getting M&A. Then there's a long-term pressure. What's the long-range plan? 5 years, call it strat plan, whatever, but you still have to deliver AOP. So as folks focused on brand equity, how do you really align around short-term must-have wins and build that long-range equity?
Boy, I guess that's the age-old problem, right?
Dilemma.
I think they can work hand in hand, right? If you're raising awareness of your brand, and you're driving through the funnel, you're driving people in store, you're getting them to consider the brand, and then you're hitting them at point of purchase, right? With creative, increased awareness should therefore get you an increase in business, right? And I think what we have found is, especially when we do our marketing mix analysis, is really having a full funnel. And if we're doing an activation in a marketplace, we are now tied at the hip with the sales team to ensure that they're also going to be in the store with an activation, because we know that actually helps pull it all the way through. So marketing acting in and of itself, separately from the rest of the business, is when it really doesn't work. So we can focus on awareness. We can focus on understanding, changing people's perception. If we do it with an overlay of the rest of the tactics, I think that's where we've found we really win. And we don't have to be only worried about, well, it's not just about awareness. It really has to be about what is making someone pick up the product, what is making someone buy it, and ensuring that is in your marketing, so that then when you get to that point, when you get to the store, you get online, it's top of mind. It's reminding them that they should be purchasing our product.
I want to reach over and give you a high five, because my pet peeve as a former chief customer officer was we weren't doing a good job of coordinating campaigns with in-store displays, or even trade-based buy-downs of price, which is, of course, your price discounting, and vice versa, when there were coupons in the marketplace or a program like Fetch or Ibotta or other mechanisms. We weren't really highlighting the heck out of that in-store to the merchant, but you're one of the first who's come on the show in 5.5 years, 500 plus episodes, to speak about completely bridging that gap. And if you guys are pulling that off at Primo, power to you. Agency world, you have significant pressure, I'm sure, that in the short term, you got to deliver short-term wins for your clients, but then you can never, ever walk away from brand equity, long-term development. So how do you do that?
Well, I think in the strategic and creative process, it's really important to develop platforms that can come to life from 30,000 feet down to the ground. And we have it, we call it like proof of concept. Like, how do we demonstrate that this concept can live in all of these places, and that it's not just going to make people feel good at the brand, but it's going to motivate them to act at the point of sale. I was talking about this earlier today with somebody. We did a campaign, we're in the midst of a campaign for Tylenol, and we launched a new brand platform for them, this idea of care without limits. And they had gotten very, very specific, Tylenol PM, Tylenol for kids, and that worked, but we've come over that now with Care Without Limits, and it's making all these other things work a lot harder. The other thing we did was we went into sports. We did a whole thing on the Olympics and talk about taking it from screen to shelf, and it drove a meaningful increase in sales and share. So I think you got to start that way. You can't kind of back into it. And you have to think, from the brand platform down to the retail level, and all sorts of other things too, whether those be brand acts or social and digital or comms. How does all that line up? I think you guys do a really amazing job of it. When I go into my local Meijer, those Ice Mountain displays are huge at the end cap, and we're tying in with the Detroit Tigers. Or there was this wasn't even our idea, somebody else executed it, but the whole Ice Mountain Michigan high school hockey program, like kind of an underleveraged thing, but their team
highly locally relevant,
super locally relevant, and came to life in really fun and interesting and engaging ways. So, but you got to think from the beginning. Like
you brought back some memories and some nostalgia today. And thinking of my days from maybe a decade plus ago, sitting in the office in Pennsylvania with Denise, the brand president, the sales strategy leader, my sales teams actually discussing Tylenol PM, Tylenol Extra Strength, Tylenol. I mean, there were 6 variations. It's great to hear that the best brand equity is Tylenol. It's not Tylenol PM. So,
Can I just add an interesting point though? Every now and then, a really good creative idea that isn't designed to drive conversion or purchase is still okay, right? And we can't be afraid. It can't be afraid of doing that. And so it's finding the balance of those two things. Of like every now and then, just if it's a cool creative idea, go do it, as opposed to, well, it's not going to drive retail. And I think you have to find that balance.
We've had this obsession last 5 years because of COVID and the move to omni-channel, that every campaign must be full funnel or must be lower funnel alone, and because of retail media, right? But we're advocates in the CPG guys. It must always be the brand objective. And sometimes that might be upper funnel, simply impressions. And we're very comfortable using the word impressions as an okay metric. And the brand should decide what the mission of that particular campaign is.
You can't measure ROI on a new product launch. You're trying to build awareness.
But as sales guys will never accept that. So
they want their measurement.
And that's fine, because there's sometimes, and you can find ways to pull it through. I think that we partnered recently on St. Patrick's Day for Poland Spring. First time we've ever done it. And it was a massive hit when you think about impressions, engagement rates, things like that. The consumers loved it. There wasn't a huge retail piece of it, a retail component of it, although I think in the end we were able to tie it to probably like DoorDash or something. But in and of itself, consumers love the concept and thought differently of Poland Spring because of it, and you still have to do those things because you really need to make brand love and drive people.
As brand stewards, we're learning a bitter lesson in the last 2 years since volume challenges hit us because of inflation and different reasons now, tariff, GLP, yada, 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 that if you want to stay true to the mission, you can't be obsessed with retail media and that's the only way, lower funnel is the only way, because brands are now having to talk to consumers about the value that they present, and the value is not the price point.
Right.
It's the efficacy of the actual product.
Of the product. That's right.
A reminder to our audience that we're speaking with Kheri Holland Tillman, CMO of Primo Brands, and David DeMuth, CEO of Donner. David, to you, since we're just talking about retail media, it's reshaping I hate using the marketing funnel term now, the path to purchase. It's not linear. How's it influencing creative strategy from your perspective? Are agencies ready for the retail media revolution, and are brands equipped to lead it creatively?
Yeah, look, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. When you're conceptualizing a brand platform and idea, you have to think about how is it going to activate in that channel of communication, and how can you bring some creativity engagement to it as well. And that can be a little bit more challenging, I think, because of the formats and the way that information is consumed. But it's a hell of a challenge for agencies, and I think we're up to it.
All right, David, we're coming right back at you. What happens when the same campaign, which is the world we live in today across multiple platforms, channels, the same retail media campaign may run across different engines, as well as the same campaign across social channels, maybe the same in-store display, so TikTok, ornament banner. How do you actually protect and share the idea across platforms without it looking mega diluted or having mission and purpose for the platform?
Well, that's a good question, and something that I think agencies are still learning. Okay. One of the things we try to do is have a lot of people on our creative team and in our strategic planning group that are experts in the platforms. We bring the platforms in quarterly to present us what's going on their platform, what's being rewarded, what isn't being rewarded. So try and inspire creativity around that. And then you have to have some experts, because things are changing on these platforms, hourly or every minute. So it's not an easy thing to keep up. And then you have all these agencies that's just a TikTok agency, or it's just a Instagram agency, and you have the creators out there. And, we're sort of, what do they call them? We're frenemies, right? Because we're both partners and we're competitors. Right. But I think what we try to do is stay super current and partner with the platforms as much as possible, or at least take in as much information from them as we can. A couple of the meetings I've had while I've been here in Cannes, some of the better meetings have been with tech platforms.
That's actually awesome to hear, but I'll ask you to wear a brand hat now. You face the same challenge. Agencies, of course, have the challenge of execution. You have the challenge of planning. So how do you think of all these various platforms, channels, etc., and how do you even account for that for planning?
Yeah, I think part of it is understanding what role you want each channel to play for you, right? And if you can really be clear about that and allow yourself grace for an idea to show up a bit differently, depending on where you go. So we have Top Chef for Saratoga. That's a partnership. It shows up in retail, but it also shows up in the on-premise accounts. So how it shows up in both of those two things is very different. But we're true to the core of the brand when we show up where we're showing up, and that allows us the flexibility. I think if we're trying to force an idea and say, okay, the commercial shows up this way, so I need it to show up that way in retail, I think it fails. I think where we win is when we give ourselves the room to say, it is actually going to show up very differently. It's going to be a recipe-based idea in retail, and you're saying, but Saratoga and recipes and who cooks? And yet that is exactly what people do. And so I think it's really understanding how you want to show up, and understanding how consumers use the product in those different places that allows us to be sort of occasion-based.
Yeah, I think brands have to give some freedom in different channels. A lot of the time, we go back to the matching luggage thing. Everything has to be in a certain creative system may not be a best practice on TikTok. So you have to, I think, as a brand, you have to be willing to give a little grace based on what channel and say well, maybe the logo is not always going to be in the bottom right because that's not where it works best. So I think that's something you find over time and together with your partner.
But then
it goes back to the trust.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So where is the expertise? It's not my expertise, it's your expertise, so come to me, right? And that allows me to be like, okay, yes, I don't need to see the logo front and center. It actually doesn't have to be on the page. Right?
But then the challenge in today's world is there's something new popping up every half hour. How do you keep pace? How do you learn? Where do you go for your learning? Now, of course, as a brand, you can go to the agency.
Ask
Makes
your
it a little easier.
teenagers.
I
And you shouldn't be afraid to.
was going to say I have my Gen Z cohort. I have 3 of them, and they are the perfect 25, 23, and 19 to be 20 in like 2 weeks. But they are perfect to have conversations with. I find that if I can sit and have the conversations with them and talk to them about what's coming up, they know the newest app, they know the newest technology, and really just having the conversation of, well, where do you think we're missing? And they are very honest with where they think we should be or where they think we're not showing up. So that is definitely one. And we would also say, of course, there are a lot of podcasts that are out. It is hard to
Do you know
keep
of
up.
any good ones, by the way?
I've heard of one called the CPG Guys, but
Give us an intro.
We need to meet these people.
I can make that happen.
Listen,
So those Gen Zs, if they ever call you skibbity or sus, just pay attention.
all right, little non sequitur because you brought it up. While Shri is constantly giving me sarcastic feedback about my appreciation of the Real Housewives series, the only thing that tops that for me is Top Chef, and Saratoga is synonymous with Top Chef.
Yes.
I have a lot of friends who are in the restaurant business, many of whom appeared on the show in various seasons. So I, for one, thank you for bringing to me the greatest entertainment I have in my life.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
Between baseball and that, she had you at hello.
I know. Yeah, you. There was no way you were going to disappoint me. Kheri, how does Primo Brands balance bold brand building? Man, all those B's in a row. Bold brand building with the need to drive measurable business results. So this is I want to talk about the brand, but I got to deliver some numbers.
Yeah, I said this a little bit before. Those can't be in conflict with each other. If as a CMO I am doing my job, I am building bold brand activations and ideas, and I'm also growing the business. They're inseparable as far as I'm concerned. If we think about, we've talked a lot about Saratoga, Poland Spring, we have Pure Life. It's finding the ideas that resonate with the consumers most at their core that allows you to then drive the business. So to me, I think the bigger and bolder ideas you can get within your marketing, using your agencies, not only on the creative side, but on activation, on social, and all of those places, the bigger you can make an idea, the bigger opportunity you're going to have to actually drive the bottom line. Okay. So I push for the big ideas because I think they're going to do a better job in actually allowing me to drive the conversion and really drive the business.
So at the top of the show, David, you had dropped a word, emotions. And so guess who's back? Shady's back with the word emotions. So in this crazy again world that's so ROAS heavy and often seems to be the only metric many care about, how do you measure the impact of emotional resonance and justify investments in brand storytelling?
Whoa.
Let me write down your answer.
Look, there's a lot of ways to measure brand equity, awareness. There's tons of great tools out there. And, I think anecdotal evidence is good too. Business evidence is good. But, threading the needle on just the right emotion and what you want people to feel is not, it's not always easy, But I think if you're smart about who you talk to, the research that you go, we're a very research-driven agency. It's not like we just go, oh, well, we made that up. So I don't know if I'm giving you a good answer because it's a difficult question. But
sometimes, David, and I'm curious to learn here. So isn't it okay to do that? Because if you know, you guys are agencies. You work with many brands.
Yeah,
you just know.
They say good instinct is the product of a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And I think there's ways to test for things. But I'm also a big believer in what I said before, signature brand assets and things like I think the Poland Springs campaign is a great example of that. It's very integrated. It has a number of. It has the literal spring. It has the character Patty Springs. The whole thing. It holds together. Those are things that help in terms of striking the right emotion that you want to leave people with.
And then as a brand, how do you think you have a similar challenge? Because sales is coming to you all the time, your CEO is coming to you, and they're thinking about numbers. Can't really measure emotional resonance other than in sales numbers, which really is not the same. How do you handle that?
I think it's having a broader perspective of what a return on your investment actually is, right? So an ROI to me is never about just a dollar return, right? Because if it is, you're always going to be short term, and it's always going to be about tomorrow, as opposed to anytime we do a campaign, anytime we're spending dollars, it's about a breadth of things that we need to do. We need to drive awareness, or we need to change consideration, household penetration, engagement rates. Those were all important ways to say, was something that we did worthy of the spend that we put behind it? MLB is another one that well, we're not in stadiums, so why are we doing MLB? Well,
I'm sure you got asked that question by the
Why would you?
board.
You're non-endemic. Why would you do this?
Why would you sponsor something that you're not in all the stadiums? And it's because there's an emotional resonance that
Absolutely.
MLB has outside of being in a stadium, because not everybody who goes watches
all
MLB.
about? It's highly emotional.
And it's highly emotional. And then you can engage with people and find ways to really drive, the business and drive your return. And it is measurable. So we dropped a sweepstakes. So you could say, well, sweepstakes is, you have people that are outside of MLB. But if you're engaging with my brand and you're willing to submit your information that allows you to log into our loyalty program, which was the hurdle that we set in order to sign up, and we had 5 million people willing to do that. That's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. You found a way to engage with someone emotionally at the point of retail. And so we were able to take the MLB idea and really bring it throughout. So I don't think it's one or the other many times, but I think you can find ways to really to show an ROI that isn't just I drove a sale.
Does that mean you're looking at lifetime value as well, or long-term value of a given consumer or household?
We don't much. We tend to be, I would say, a year or two, right? So we're looking at what's the impact, how are we spending our dollars this year versus last year, and how are we doing with things like awareness levels and things like that. We need to always be bringing new people in, so we're looking at sort of those pieces of data. So that's a bit more long-term, but we tend to be, I think, shorter term. We're not saying, hey, this person today is worth $1 million tomorrow. But I think intuitively, we have to have that in our cycle in order to continue to be successful.
So as the most prominent manufacturer of case pack water, I have to imagine that sustainability is a topic that you deal with constantly. So my question to you is, what does sustainability actually mean to you, and how do you practice it out?
Yeah, so it's not only a topic, but it is actually at our core of what we do. We have several pillars that we look at. One of them is our resources and making sure we're managing our resources. Because we source from springs. Our water is sourced from springs. It is sourced from places where consumers aren't getting their water, and it allows us to bring spring water to consumers at a place where they couldn't get it. Circular packaging. So half of our business is in 5-gallon. So that's a reusable, recycled way of getting water that is not just a case pack anymore. That's a big part of what we're doing. How we activate in our community. And if you think about how local we are, so our carbon footprint's a whole lot lower than some of the waters that are coming over from over the ocean into the US. And we're local. So not only is it truly local, but you're sitting in and you're producing your water in Maine, you're producing your water there, and then you're shipping it from there. California has its water produced there. So there are tenets of what we're trying to do: carbon footprint, recyclability, and also we commit to having, right now it's 35% of our bottles are in recycled plastic, which is more expensive than doing virgin plastic. And then we're looking at things like, how do we get more states to have bottle bills to get more returns? We're also doing ocean cleanup. We're doing 1% for the planet on our aluminum bottles. So it really is ingrained in our North Star of, for us to be successful as a company, healthy hydration for consumers everywhere at any point in time in a format that they want it is at our core, but doing it sustainably. Otherwise, we won't be here in 10 years, right? And so it really is at the center of the decisions that we make from a business standpoint as well.
Well said.
So I'm going to wrap this up with a hot round for you guys. Same question for each of you. We're in a festival. There's many themes that are emerging. Surely there must be one trend that kind of surpasses
What are you going to
everything
take back?
else.
What's your hot take from
What's your hot
Ken?
take, David?
I hate to say this, but AI is it's a part of every conversation, and I think from my own perspective, I've been a little bit resistant, just because we're in a human business and creativity is a human endeavor, I think. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I've been inspired by is how we can use AI to enhance and scale creativity, and I think that's going to be, the theme of the next 2 years, at least from a creative agency standpoint, is how do we use AI to enhance that creativity and scale it in really sort of personalized and acutely relevant ways for consumers.
Today, though, is that still good talk or is it already here?
Personally, I think in most cases, it's a lot of talk right now. And I don't think marketers are feeling even the tip of the iceberg of the impact of it yet. But I do think it's going to come, and it's going to come really fast.
Tsunami.
Yeah. The thing I will say, which as you walk down the street and you kind of take everything in, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of information. Consumers now are overwhelmed. And I wonder if there's going to be a bit of a backlash and a desire for less distraction and less noise. Yeah. And I think it's interesting the role. I mean, people are talking about going back to BlackBerries and flip phones, so that they have the core of what they need. I need my email and I need my phone, but I don't need anything else. I don't need pictures and videos and everything everywhere I go. Yeah. And so how as brands can we actually enable and unlock some of that? Is it a simplification of messaging? Is it it's not about flash, 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 but it's going to be about a blue screen and it's just Saratoga. I'm making that up, but in a world of noise and images, how do we streamline and just take things back? And I wonder how consumers are going to look for companies to do that for them.
I'll give you one more, because I have another one that's on the complete opposite end of AI, and I think this festival is tangible proof of it, is just live experiences and the power of live experiences.
Marketing.
Just if you could, next year I'll get you guys into Stagwell Sport Beach.
We got our in.
Be careful what you offer, because we'll follow up.
There was a line of 300 people trying to get in yesterday. Now Ryan Reynolds was there, but still, these live experience and just the humans connecting with humans and brand partnerships and athletes and creators and media. It's kind of the other end of the spectrum of AI, and I think we're going to see that continue to ramp, because I think there's a real insatiable desire that people have to experience something together.
Just here in Cannon the Beach, I think 5 years ago, if you were walking along, you didn't see all these retail publishers. Now it's just littered with them,
cabana after cabana.
And then as the retail media wave changes and you start to consolidate, you start to see, okay, maybe retailers are going to focus on owned and operated and let the upper funnel go to coalitions, because does it really make sense for a small regional retailer to be trying to sell upper funnel programmatic and streaming TV to a brand, because it takes you just as much effort to execute on their platform as it does to those big people out in Seattle. And where are you going to spend your time? Right. Where the juice is not worth the squeeze. So it'll 5 years from now, to the point in the noise, it could be something completely different. So there's a lot of things changing.
So let me remind our listeners, you can find all of our content by simply going to a web browser and typing cpgguys.com as the URL. If you or someone you know has something to contribute to this ongoing discussion on the CPG Guys, please do email us at contact@cpgguys.com. To our audience, thank you for the clicks, likes, comments, DMs, meeting with us at trade shows, coming to our events, recording episodes with us, and of course to our sponsors. We are always grateful for you. The show doesn't exist without all of you. You work with us all year. We're grateful to have you as both our audience and partners. Thank you, thank you, thank you. David, Kheri, thank you for appearing on the CPG Guys today and having an excellent discussion on True brand
Love this.
building.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us. Great brands, great partners. Couldn't ask for anything more.
Peter,
Yes, right.
I think this is our last recording for the week.
I think we need to pack, get to the airport, and you get to fly home. I fly home, and then I unpack, repack, throw my wife and daughter, and then fly back to France to go to Paris for a week.
There you go.
Yeah, because they don't get upgraded if they're not with me.
I was wondering why I fly all
And
the way home.
I said to my wife, "You understand? I'm gonna have to fly all the way back."
fly
And she's
back.
like, "Oh, no problem.
That
with
sounds good.
That's okay."
I hope they're listening to this podcast
Can
and they
I
know.
can I pre-order my cuisine in the business class? Yeah.
Okay.
That's a wrap of this episode of the CPG Guys.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.